Such wasted potential. The good she could have done.
Helluva Boss has a large cast of antagonists, but do those antagonists actually work as effective villains? Now, what exactly do I mean by villains? Well, villains should have the following. They should be threatening to the main cast, either physically or intelligence-wise. They should be engaging to watch, since boring antagonists or conveniently easy antagonists could lead to the viewer drawing away from it. Lastly, they should be recurring threats, that is if they are not already dead. The villains in Helluva Boss do not work as villains, and I shall explain why.
Oh, scary! Oh, shiver my timbers! Shut up, man!
I don't know how this show managed to accomplish this, but for some reason, every single antagonist in Helluva Boss is not threatening to the main cast. The antagonists that were threatening to the main cast are not anymore after their debut episodes. Striker is a pretty good example of this. Striker lost his angelic rifle in Harvest Moon Festival, then lost both of his angelic revolvers, his angelic rope, and his angelic knife in Western Energy. As a result, he isn't able to harm Starless, because he doesn't have any angelic weapons. While he is physically strong, he has gotten a bit nerfed in Western Energy. In Harvest Moon Festival, he was able to defeat Millie with ease, but now Millie is able to exchange blows with him. moxxie had gotten a plot armor buff in Western Energy, so he was able to assist Millie in defeating Striker. Before, he was able to defeat moxxie and Millie with ease, but now he lost to them and ran away. The writers weakened Striker, so that the episode could end. However, there is an antagonist who wasn't threatening from the start, and that antagonist is Crimson. Crimson is a mob boss in Greed with a small army of goons. With that in mind, you'd think that he would become a huge threat, right? Well, unfortunately, he isn't.
Pussy!
He's basically an inferior version of the Penguin from the Batman franchise. Not only is Crimson weak physically, but his goons are also weak too. Millie was able to wipe out a good chunk of them in X's and O's, and when Millie was done, Crimson was basically at her mercy. Crimson was somewhat of a threat to moxxie in the episode, but moxxie stood up to him, and even threatened him, essentially erasing whatever power he had over moxxie. So, Crimson is physically weak, his goons are weak, and the only power he had against a character was gone, as soon as it arrived. Not to mention, Crimson was in need of money since his debut. So it's entirely possible that his Mayfair as a whole is losing power. The rest of the villains aside from the one-off ones like Martha and her family fall into the ones was threatening, but not anymore category or the not threatening at all category. However, physicality isn't the only thing that can determine whether or not an antagonist is threatening or not. Intelligence is also a factor in this. Are any of the antagonists in Helluva Boss smart? The short answer is no. The villains in Helluva Boss are not smart at all, and that's probably because the main protagonists in Helluva Boss aren't smart either, but that's a topic for a different video. For this example, I'm going to talk about an antagonist who's just stupid because they are, and that antagonist is Stella.
What?
Stella, Gosha? I don't know her last name. Stella is a specific antagonist to Stolas as her entire character is being a Stolas hater. She makes pretty stupid decisions when it comes to getting rid of her husband, such as letting Striker attack Stolas in a public place. Yes, I'm serious. She lets an infamous assassin attack a demon prince in public. Now, this particular scene could have gone wrong for Stella in multiple ways. What if Striker got caught? What if Striker was petrified by Stolas right then and there? Why didn't Stella at least look surprised when Striker started attacking Starless? Instead of thinking her plan through, Stella just let Striker go all willy-nilly in public. She's pretty lucky that Striker didn't get petrified by Starless or caught by another demon. But anyway, Stella is pretty stupid, and I'll make an in-depth video discussing her in the future. Another example is the Dorks agents, more specifically agents 1 and 2. Now, what makes them a bit different from Stella is that their intelligence could stem from the fact that they are overambitious and underestimated the main cast. They did manage to corner the main cast and could have killed them had it not been for Starless. The plot literally saved the main cast from near death. But agents 1 and 2 still have moments of being pretty stupid. Both agents never shared their evidence of demons, but instead wanted more despite already having a lot. Both agents had their workers use outdated melee weapons, which resulted in all of them dying. Also, in my opinion, this fight scene is pretty overrated. I'll also make a video about the dorks battle soon. But what I'm trying to say is, how can I take these antagonists as serious threats when they are not even smart? In the latest episode, Striker nor Crimson shot Fizzarolli while he was performing a distraction song. Even though Fizzarolli and Blitzo talked about distracting them right in front of them.
Fizz, remember how you used to distract my dad so I could steal his booze?
I mean, yeah? Why?
Yeah, well, I need to get up to that window there to bust us out.
Oh, one distraction coming up.
Now, this is a different topic. For this section I won't be discussing why or how the antagonists are poorly written, but more specifically, how having a large number of antagonists, especially in Helluva Boss, will be an issue for the writing long term. If the antagonists were episodic antagonists such as the antagonists in Power Rangers, then this entire villain thing would not be an issue at all. However, each antagonist in Helluva Boss does not fit the role of an episodic antagonist. Instead, they fit the role of a season or at least a few episodes long kind of antagonist, especially with how powerful they all are. Regardless of what I said about Crimson, he's still a crime lord, most likely the biggest one in the Greed Ring, who should have connections across all the rings of hell. Stella is a Gosha member, who has nearly the same amount of power as Stolas does. The Dorks Agency is a government agency with eyes and cameras in many places on Earth. Striker will be a huge threat once more, if he gets more angelic weapons. Even though the cherubs were banished from heaven, they are still physically powerful and could potentially become fallen angels similar to Lucifer. Lastly, all of the humans the main cast has killed before and throughout the series could come back as sinners and target the main cast. There are so many antagonists in Helluva Boss that could be huge threats for a huge amount of the series' runtime. However, most of these villains are ignored for pointless filler or drama episodes. The writers of Helluva Boss bit way more than they could chew with a story, and it's questionable whether or not they could finish their plate while delivering a good story. In conclusion, there are way too many antagonists in Helluva Boss. They are not threatening in the slightest, and I'm pretty sure they will all be defeated in the most disappointing way possible. To be honest, the series should have stuck to its original plot, instead of adding so many plot lines. Or, at the very least, the series should have resolved the already established issues before making new ones. Many other shows have done something similar to that, and while few were pretty decent, the rest, not so much. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have a nice day.